Welcome to the Voices of a Black Man. Today I have the pleasure of having a conversation with none other than Mr. Terence Staten. The Voices of a Black Man is a platform for Black men to be able to tell their stories through their lenses. Society puts them in a box of either being silent, which equals absent, or angry, which equals aggressive. But all Black men don't fit in those boxes. And they're definitely not all the same. They have their own, they come from different backgrounds, they have their own experiences, dreams, and aspirations. So, this project series is to allow us as a society to get to know some of the Black men that are in society about their backgrounds, experiences, and how they're men who happen to be Black and not just a box that's one size fit all. So today I have with me Terence Staten, and I'm super excited to talk with him. Terence, are you there?
I am. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be on your platform. How you doing?
I am doing well. How are you doing, good sir?
I'm doing well for a great sunny Friday morning, or I should say afternoon.
Yeah. We're right on the cusp, right, of morning and afternoon. So I'm gonna just jump right on in here. I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for being willing to tell your story through your lens. And we're just gonna start right off with where are you from? How'd you grow up?
Well, I'm a Washingtonian, born and raised in Washington, D.C., the home of go-go and mumbo sauce for people who know what that is. Pretty much grew up in a single family home, just me and my mom. My mother did a great job raising a boy, a young man in the inner city of Washington, D.C. Especially in my era growing up, Washington, D.C. was a lovely town. It was considered chocolate city, but we also had a lot of crime. It was very gang, you know, uh, I guess you could say it was gang ridden throughout the city. I mean, I think within a 3 mile block, you had several different gangs. So I thought my mom did a great job in keeping me safe, making sure that I was educated, and more importantly, just making sure that I was loved. And
Mm.
so I commend her greatly. She's one of my role models, love her to death. But yeah, from Washington, D.C., born and raised, I'm proud to be a Washingtonian.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. Home of go-go and
Mumbo sauce.
mumbo sauce. All right. All right. You will have to get into that mumbo sauce. We'll get into it right now. What is mumbo sauce?
Well, mumbo sauce is, I guess, if I had to compare it to something here in North Carolina, I guess it's sort of like a barbecue sauce. Sort of. It's kind of got like a sweet mustard spice to it. And normally we put that on chicken wings. So we always say chicken wings and mumbo sauce. But it's one of those things you
Mm.
would have to try out. If you ever get a chance to go back to my hometown, just ask for mumbo sauce. You can get it anywhere. And, try it for yourself. Mumbo sauce to Washington, D.C. is like Philly cheesesteak to Philadelphia.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. I'm happy to try that next time. Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. You're making me hungry. So now let's talk about just community wise growing up. Who are some of the influences as you were growing up in Washington, D.C. in the community for you?
I would say my basketball coach, my high school coach in particular, Mr. Johnson. He was the guy that really just inspired me because he got under me. You know,
Mm,
um, my early years in high school, I wasn't a great student. Mr. Loverman, athlete, wasn't taking my education seriously. And he had a real man conversation with me, really paint the picture of what your future going to look like if you don't get this together. And for a man who lived in a single family household in the inner city, it's very important to see men like that who wants to take pride in, hey, pulling you to the side and say, hey, get your act together, and not just telling you get your act together, but showing you the reasons as to why you need to get your act together. Because there's repercussions to every act or repercussion to things that you don't do, So he was very pivotal. I also had uncles in my life. My grandfather, who was a mayor in his own town right here in North Carolina in LaGrange. He was very, inspirational to me. Just a very stand-up guy, high character, integrity. He was a husband first. Well, he was a man of God first, a husband second, family man third, but he was everything to the community, fourth. And I just really admired that he was a go-getter. He did it with class and he did it with integrity. So I would say definitely my grandfather, my uncles, they kind of cut from the same cloth, my basketball coach, Mr. Johnson. And those guys is very pivotal in my upbringing.
Mm. Okay, okay. So now, DC, did you stay in DC from birth till graduating high school? When did you leave
Um,
DC?
I left DC, I want to say I was about 27.
Okay.
Yeah, 27 years old. My wife and I, Tiffany, we relocated down to Atlanta, Georgia, another chocolate city. And we moved from Atlanta to Houston, Texas, because we want to kind of travel around a little bit, meet some people in some different spaces, some different markets, kind of be cultured in that way. But all the way up to 27 years of age, I've been living in Washington, D.C.
Okay. So up to 27, you lived in a predominantly Black area,
Yes.
or was it mixed?
Well, it was mixed because we still had we had Jamaicans, we had Hispanics, we had Puerto Ricans. Yeah, so it was very multicultural in that regard.
Nice, nice. So when did you figure out or realize that, wait a minute, I'm not just a young man, but I'm a Black man? And what did that mean to you?
Well, I just look at the school systems. If you go to the Georgetown area, the more affluent areas in Washington, D.C., and compare it to where I was living, I mean, I mean, there was just, it was clearly evident that they were being educated on a much more higher level. They had uh, more opportunities, they had better programs, they had more money being poured into those programs. And so you could see the difference when you go to certain parts of DC, which I would say Georgetown, to more so the inner city, northwest areas, southeast areas. So it was clearly evident that a lot of those schools in those more affluent areas was getting better opportunities, well educated, and because they had more money being poured into those programs, and so they can kind of get ahead of the curve a lot quicker than some of the people that was more so in the low to middle class neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm. So seeing that, your first time, do you remember the first time going to a different area and seeing something that was totally different than what you had in your community? Do you remember that experience?
Yeah, my community, again, I'm from the inner city. So, hearing gunshots and, sirens, police, just hearing a lot of ruckus in the neighborhood to going to a more affluent neighborhood where it's quiet, life is a little bit more simple, it's tranquil. You can just kind of feel the difference. A lot of kids in those areas didn't really feel on edge, didn't really feel like they had to be protected and secured like we did. You get caught walking home from school, wrong time, wrong place, you might get shot.
Mm-hmm.
It could be mistaken identity, or it could be, a girl like you that another guy liked. Now he wants to, beat you up or kill you. I mean, it was several different ways, several different reasons why someone can get shot in the inner city. Well, these kids over in the more affluent neighborhoods didn't have to worry about that. So I noticed that difference right away, that there seems to be more of a calm, a peace in those neighborhoods, whereas in my neighborhood you had to be on high alert.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. So now let's talk about in home. It sounds like your mom created kind of that peaceful, nurturing home atmosphere so that when you, so that outside of that, it may have been all that crazy going on, but you had some peace and nurturing and foundation on the inside.
Yeah, mom did a great job of just creating a safe space for me, what I'm saying, to be me. She made sure I was a man, you know, can always cry and ask for everything. I had to earn it, but for the most part, she allowed me to grow up as a young man in the inner community. She was very pivotal in terms of how to shape my thoughts, how I need to approach things, how I need to look at treating women, how to treat women, how to approach my education, making sure she called her brothers and her father when I got out of line. You know how sometimes you get at that age, you start smelling yourself a little bit, trying to be
Yeah.
cute. She let me know very quick, nah, we're going to shut that down. So, but I thought she did a great job the best way she could to safeguard me from a lot of stuff that was going around me. And so we were, if it was ever a family that was in the community but not of it, that was us.
Mm.
We traveled. I come from a big family, that spread out all over the place. We always done some great things together. We've always left out of the neighborhood. She always made sure that, my experiences was diverse, that I just wasn't in a particular neighborhood all the time. I think one of her biggest regret is that she didn't send me to a private school, so I can get more diverse education. But outside of that, I think she did a great job of creating a safe space for me.
Mm. Mm. So it sounds like that a lot of those things are attributed to you not falling into, and I'm just going to say friends, right? Because you went to school with them, other people, boys and girls that may have fallen into some of the traps that were happening in the neighborhood, such as gangs and violence and things of that nature, that her being an influence there for you, taking you out of the community, allowing you to see different things, and making sure she had those brothers and her father there to kind of help get you back in line. Would you attribute that? What else would you attribute to not falling in victim to just some things that happen just because this is where I grew up and this is all I know?
Well, for me, I couldn't live like that. I see guys always looking over their shoulders, always wondering, okay, when somebody from another gang is going to come and shoot me, stand on the block, you
Mhm.
know, or just that whole drug game. I just couldn't relate to that. I didn't want to live my life like that. And then just having so many instances where you hearing about guys getting shot, on a consistent basis, I just knew I didn't want that for myself. What really did it for me, I remember going to the barbershop and it was a guy that sat in the chair right before me and he had all these plans. He was going to go to the go-go, he was going to pick up his girl, he's getting ready to have a great night. And a minute, as soon as he left out the barbershop, he was gunned down. And that just always stuck with me. It's like you're here 1 minute and then the next minute you're gone. And we have too many stories like that where we have some very ingenuitive, creative young boys who haven't even, lived their life, and their life is taken away from them at an instant. So I didn't want that for me. I couldn't live like that. I never understood the street life, even though I was in the neighborhood, but I wasn't of it.
Mhm.
And my mom made it. She said, "Hey, look, I worked too hard for you to get caught up in that. I will not allow you to intermingle with that sort of lifestyle. So friends that you hang around with, make sure that they're right people. So even in that, making sure I'm studying people and figure out, okay, who are you? What's your motives? What you about? Because if you ain't about nothing, I can't hang with you. I can mess up by myself. I don't need to mess up with a group of y'all." So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, so she sounds wise. Your mom sounds very wise and a strong woman. So high school, after high school, what happened with young Terrence?
So high school, actually, I didn't like school. I graduated, got myself together, good grades, but going to college right after high school, I just wasn't for it. So, I went into the workforce, made my money, and then it got to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm not making a whole lot of money. So let me go ahead and figure out what I'm going to do. So took a year off from school and then I went into vocational school, got a certification in computerized business systems, so was in technology for a little bit, got a little bored doing that. And then I ended up just going into sales, for a few years. Excelled at that. People would say I'm a great salesperson. I don't think it's that. I think it's just me having great skills as far as being relatable and finding commonality with people. But it worked. And so I had a great career doing sales, and then got tired of doing sales. I said, well, I kind of want to do something a little bit different. So when we moved to Atlanta, I ended up going to the Art Institute of Atlanta and studied digital film and video productions. Did that for a while. It was great. And then I ended up in banking for 5 years. Started off as retail banking, got promoted to assistant branch manager, and I ended up being a community banker and then a business banker. And so now I'm heavily into community development, helping people with their businesses, how to start and develop their businesses, how to get funded, how to have a financial blueprint for your business. And that kind of turned into the career that I'm into now with this community development for a nonprofit that I work for with the Center for Homeownership and Economic Development. So have some experiences. I had to try a few things until I found my niche. But I think by the time I was about 31 years old, I think I got a clear understanding of who I am and where I'm going.
Got you. Okay, so you ended up in community economic community development, but you said something that I want to go back to, and I want to delve just a little bit further in. You
Sure.
talked about because I think it's not just as a salesman, although it works great at being a salesman, but I think it's something that goes a long way from just being a salesman. And you talked about being relatable and understanding people. Can you delve a little bit more and talk a little bit about that? And where did that come from? And what does that mean when you say those things?
Well, for one thing, people don't want to be sold.
Yeah.
People want to be, they want you to hear what their needs are. And they want you to take note, and they want you to, discern, have discernment when you're talking to people. Make sure that you are strategically listening to what they are saying to you, and then come back with a product that makes sense for them. What I used to find with a lot of salespeople is they just sell a product, based on how much commission they can get from it. But that's not really, to me, that's not being a mark of a true salesperson. A true salesperson is relatable. They find commonality. They get to know this person, what they like, what they don't like, what the strengths, weaknesses are, how do they live life, what's fun to you, what's not fun to you. And so I just use that to gauge how to sell anything to a person and share some things about myself. Like you and I, we're dialoguing now, we're relating to each other. So when people trust in you and you can relate and you can find commonality, then you can pretty much sell not anything to a person, but they would trust that you have their best intentions in mind. And that's what I mean about, I was never a great salesperson. The numbers would say I was, but I was better at finding common ground with people. And I think that's one of my God-given talents.
So and that's what I was going to ask you. Is it something that it's a natural thing for you to find common ground? Where did that come from? Finding common ground, relating to people. Do you attribute that to some place in your life of learning, or it's always been there?
Well, I'm just a people's person. I mean, even as a kid, I was always a connector. Whenever we go out and do anything, it always led with me. People want to come over my house. Look, we're going to meet over Terrence's house, and we're going to figure out what we do. I'm the guy that goes out and meet different people and I just bring them together. That's just a natural thing with me. And so it was nothing for me to really just figure out how can I connect with this girl, or how can I connect with this man, and how can I be friends with this person. For my wife, it was how can I mac her? You know what I'm saying? But I'm always asking questions. How can I get to know this person? That's just something innate within me. It's just how I'm wired. It's natural. And so I've always looked to be just organic with people, being my authentic self, and just say, hey, I want to get to know you. And yeah, I've read some books, but I think it's still just something that's God-given. I just have a natural ability for.
Absolutely. Something that was there, and then it was watered along the way in different
Absolutely.
experiences and reading books and things of that nature. Which how does that throughout your life, as you look throughout your life, just kind of the string throughout your life, that being the string, the common thing at the core of you is what I'm hearing, that that's who you are at the core. How has that allowed you to overcome obstacles and increase successes?
Well, it's kind of funny because a lot of my success was born from trial and error. I made a lot of mistakes. If you talk to any black male, I don't care how many degrees they have, how credentially fit they are, we've all made mistakes.
Mhm.
And sometimes our greatest lessons is just life lessons, and so every time that I made a mistake, I always made sure I learned from it. You know what I'm saying? There's always a lesson to be learned in a crisis. There's always lessons to be learned in failure. Um, for me, it was for the longest time, I used to get stuck with failure. I didn't like how failure felt. I equate failure to being inferior.
Mm.
I just had a poor definition of what failure was. So a lot of times I would overcompensate, not having to process the failure with trying to be liked, what I'm
Mm.
saying, trying to be accepted, trying to be affirmed.
Yeah.
And that was easy for me to get affirmation because I knew how to befriend people. But the other side of that was too, is that even though I knew how to befriend you and we became friends, there were still some walls there because I've always told myself, if they find out who I truly am, are they really going to stay friends with me? You know?
Mm.
And so you have all these different experiences that you're going through, this mental anguish that you're having, and you're like, okay, well, how do I learn? How do I grow from this? And then, when you're in your 20s, you're already crazy. You're trying to figure yourself out, trying to figure out which direction you're going in, trying to make sense of life. And so a lot of my lessons have been, like I said, through trial and error, through relationships, through experiences, whether they were good or bad. And hopefully I'm answering your question because that's what comes to mind when I think of your question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty much where it all
So what
comes.
about obstacles? You talked about success. What about obstacles? How have you in life overcome obstacles? And are there any that stick out to you? You're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that was a big one that I overcame.
Well, most of my obstacles is always internal. And the reason why I say
Mm.
that is because it's really how you think of yourself. I used to
Mhm.
struggle with significance. You know, why am I here? What am I supposed to do? Sometimes I ask God, okay, what is all this for? I'm doing all this studying, I'm getting these credentials, I'm working this, I'm working that, but it just doesn't make sense. What's happening? You know what I'm saying? And so for me, I had read this book called Search for Significance some time ago. And it really put some things in perspective as far as how you look at failure. As I said before, I used to hate failing. I used to
Mm.
equate failure to being a loser. So a lot of times what I would do is I would take myself out the game because I tell myself, nah, I don't think I'm the right person for this. I really don't have nothing to offer. If you stack me up to some of these other people who are very, credentially fit,
Yeah.
I can't measure up. But now I'm at that point where I'm like, you know what? I got to conquer me. I got to be satisfied with me. And once I got to the point where I was satisfied with me, then that's when it started clicking.
Mm. Mhm.
So it's like you have to get rid of this stinking thinking that constantly tears you down from the inside out. Everything with me was always internal. It was never anything external. So for
Mhm.
me, when I conquered what was going on inside, then it made things around me a little bit easier. And if I failed at something, you know what? Get right back up and keep moving. And so that's what
Mhm.
it is for me.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Okay. So more internal obstacles than external obstacles.
Absolutely.
I like where you talk about taking yourself out of the game because you decided mentally that, wait a minute, I might fall here, so let me pull myself out. but I'm growing from that to realize that sometimes falling isn't as bad as we think it is. Sometimes falling is actually moving forward. Falling forward, failing forward is what I call it.
Mhm.
That actually sets us up for more success than if we didn't go through that process at all, because the learning and the experiences.
Yeah, you'd be surprised that many Black men, we go through that. We don't always speak it. We don't talk about it because, when you're coming from my neighborhood in era, man, you got to suck that up. You can't show weaknesses. You can't be vulnerable. Many people thought you were soft. Like I say, there were consequences, you know. And then being as though I was raised in a single family home with my mom, there's just certain things that she couldn't give me as a female. I didn't have a father. I didn't have a man figure in the house uh, that talked me through that process, how to understand failure. Why are you failing? Here's some adjustments you need to make. So having a man in the household is very important on so many levels. And I think that's why in my neighborhood, when you talk about uh, the gangs and stuff, a lot of these boys out there in the streets is because they didn't have a father in the home. I think all my friends, maybe with the exception of one of us, actually had a father, a two-parent home. You know what I'm saying? So that's something I didn't get. So like I said, a lot of stuff that I learned was trial and error, reading books, but the key thing is I got it. So.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So now let's talk about, you went to Atlanta, you went to Texas, so you got to experience a whole lot of different things. Now moving from the city to other cities, but different cities, right? Are there any differences as you moved around to a couple of different places, learning a little bit more? What experiences did you gain?
Atlanta, in many ways, is similar to Washington, D.C. I think it's just the south of D.C. And then you had so many Washingtonians migrating down to Atlanta. So some of that D.C. culture is there in Atlanta. One thing I love about Atlanta that's missing in Washington, D.C. is that sense of community, amongst Blacks there. It is a new Black Mecca. I see a lot of Blacks thriving there. They have their issues, but for the most part, I see them thriving and they're doing it together. And so that's what I admire most about the South in that regard when you're talking about Blacks in general. Up north where I'm from, we're more individualistic. You know what I'm saying? We focus on self a lot, whereas down the South, it's about family. It's about how can we come together? How can we do this together? So I really love the tradition aspect of that in Atlanta. Houston is a little bit different. Houston is kind of a mixed bag. It's multicultural. It's like, hey, where you blend in is where you fit in. You have Asians, you have Hispanics, you have Blacks, of course, whites. It's a blended town, so it's a totally different environment. If I had to choose between the two, of course, Atlanta, because of what it represents. But I met some great people in Houston as well. I love Houston. It's a huge city. It's very progressive. I love it. And so those would be the two experiences I had in those two cities.
Okay. Did you live anywhere else?
Nope, came here.
Where's
Raleigh.
here for our viewers? Where's here?
Here is Raleigh, North Carolina. And love Raleigh. It's a little bit slower compared to some of the other cities I've lived in. But I love it. It's a great place where you can raise families. Up and coming. I think it's becoming Silicon Valley on the East Coast now. You have so many farms here and so many people are moving here. I think it's about 36% of transplants moving here every month. I mean, it's a great place to live. So I'm really enjoying it.
Okay, wonderful. So now you're giving me some stats. Your CEO hat with EDC's coming out. It's coming out, which is good, which is a good thing, which is really a good thing. Let's talk about that a little bit. So you work in community economic development. What is it that that you guys primarily focus on?
Well, Center for Home Ownership and Economic Development is a multifaceted nonprofit, and the services that we provide is home buyer education, financial capability programs, home ownership programs. We work directly with senior citizens, low-income individuals, all veterans, and first-time home buyers, positioning them to get adequate and affordable housing. We also do disaster relief recovery programs. We serve about 10 counties, I think, near the Wilmington area. That's a new program that we just brought on last year. We're getting ready to tap into mental health and substance abuse counseling programs. That should be up and running next year. And on the economic development side, where my focus is business development training as well as workforce development training. So my goal is to provide technical skills training for small businesses in the rural area, but at this point with this, COVID-19, anybody want to get on my platform and learn anything about how to start, develop, and grow your business, you can do that. And on the workforce development piece, we're looking to bring on an ecosystem of different training programs, which consist of cybersecurity, technology, when you talk about insulation, programming, networking, and HVAC. We also look at that going into agriculture as well, because we believe that farming is a trade that many people are starting to get into. So a lot is going on. That's pretty much what my focus is right now.
Nice. And I see there the skills that we talked about earlier, being relatable and being able to understand and discern people, kind of help with helping guide them to their path and where they need to be.
Absolutely. And right now with the next, I say next economy, because we don't know what this new normal is going to be if this pandemic ever comes to an end. But I think Black people in particular, we definitely need to be open to a new skill set. I think the world is changing. And we're going to have a lot of people coming out of incarceration as well that's going to need some jobs. So my goal is for our agencies to make sure that we in position and formation to make sure that we have the right training programs that leads to careers today. And the labor force is definitely something that's a need. You're always going to need HVAC technicians. You're always going to need electricians. You're always going to need somebody with some technology skills, whether it's programming or networking. You're always going to need those things. Farming is also a skill that many of us, we need to look into. And so I always try to look at, well, what's relevant, but more importantly, what is the need and how can we solve the problems coming up? So, yeah.
That's exactly where I was going to go. This is as your question, because you took the VOTEC route, right, for some education and things of that nature. And I think that people don't look at trades as much. It used to be back in the day, go to college, get a 4-year degree, that type of thing. And now we're lacking in the trades of having the right people, enough people to handle the trades where you can make really good money and do well with your family, in the trade industries. And what's your take on that?
Yeah, I always felt like it needs to be an alternative to going to college. Let's be real, all kids are not going to fare well in college. So if you're not going to do well in college, then what? We need to start looking at some vocational programs out there that's going to position them to provide a life for themselves right away. And so I advocate that point. Let's go back, let's look at ideally what's in the best interest of the person that might not be college ready. So I think trades, when you get into labor force type trades, or any trade for that matter, it can be even in medical. I think that's what the new economy is. You got to have a skill. Having degrees and stuff is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But for the new economy, you're going to have a skill. And people are going to be more so looking at, okay, what skill do you have? What do you bring to the table that I can use right now? So I'm 100% behind the vocational training program. Again, I think it's needed, and I think that's where it's heading.
What about entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think entrepreneurship is very relative as well. I mean, we got to have businesses. Small businesses is what make the economy go around. It's what create jobs. That's why my main focus is developing small businesses and workforce development. We got to have both, right? So I applaud anybody who's considering going into business. I would just say, just make sure that you're strategic and that you have a plan.
Yeah.
You've been in business for several years, you're doing quite well, but you didn't get to this point if you didn't have a strategic plan in place, right? So we can't think we're just going to start a business because we have a great idea. It goes deeper than that. We got to make sure that you have a blueprint for success. And I welcome it. I love when people say, hey, I'm thinking about starting a business. But then my first question is, okay, let's look at your business. Let's see if it is a business or is it just an idea?
Nice. So now you're a leader in the community, and you're helping people in workforce development and entrepreneurship, and making sure that they're on the right path, and being productive, and getting the most they can out of their life. What is lacking in our leadership today? And it can be community, it could be society, it could be wherever you want, wherever you're talking. It could be local. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, that's a loaded question. uh, I would just say direction.
Okay.
I think we do a great job at talking. We all have great points of views, but I don't think we have yet learned how to direct the masses of people to an actual direction. That makes sense. What is our call to action? And then what are we looking to accomplish? A lot of people are asking me this question about protesting. And they say, well, how do you feel about protesting? I said, it's okay. It's needed. I think it's definitely one bullet in the gun that we can use, but that can't be the only bullet. We got to have a strategic plans working in different areas in conjunction with a protest that's going to yield results. And so we're very emotional people. We mean well and we want to do more. We aspire to do more. But I think where we fall short is direction. Where does this all lead to? And why are we doing it? Also understanding why we're doing what we're doing. So I think we're gradually getting to that. I'm seeing more coalitions being formed. I'm seeing more people taking the time out to really think it through and really figure out how we're going to lead this charge that's going to improve our economic system. But yeah, I think that would be the biggest thing for me. If I had to, name it something, it would be lack of direction.
What else could we do on just looking locally, just looking in the community, just if we take it community by community? What are some things that you think that we could do differently to have better results? And that's not just a Black community, but just community to community.
Well, I think for starters, we got to be very honest with ourselves. I think a lot of us, we get so caught up in our credentials and what we've done successfully, and that's great. But sometimes we just got to be real honest. We got to really figure out, okay, well, how does my skill set mesh with your skill set, right? Once we determine that, then from that point on, we say, well, how can these two mesh together to yield results, right? So we got to figure out, one, how to work together. Because I get tired of the idioms that says, well, Black people can never work together. Or, Black people will never do this and won't do that. Time out from that. It's a new day now. We got to start being individuals. And we got to really look at ourselves and figure out, how do we come together? How do we collaborate? How do we aggregate all of our resources to make sure that we have vertical integration, which means we go up together. And that's going to be the next phase for our community. You know what I'm saying? Is that we just got to reprogram some things in the way that we do things. You know what I'm saying? Once we can reprogram ourselves and do it together, I think we can have a real chance at building our economy the way that it should have been built, before. And so that's how I see it. Hopefully I was answering your question on that, but yeah.
Yeah, you answered. You answered from your heart. So you answered it. Yes, absolutely. Now, one of the things that I'm curious about is, as a Black man, what are some things that you've accomplished or done in your life that people kind of eyebrowed of you? You did that because of your color, not necessarily because of your abilities, but because they just didn't think that a Black man would do that or be there or that type of thing.
Well, Hillside High School, if you're familiar with Hillside, they have a bank inside the high school. It's a simulation of a bank called Wilforce National Bank. Well, I was very instrumental in getting that into the school system. And the reason why I did that is because I got tired of our kids not understanding finances. It was never taught to me. It was never taught to, generations before me. Trial and error, once again, is how we learn. And so I said, well, you know what? If I could find a way to get a bank inside of a high school where we teach these kids from an early age, okay, let's get a checking account. Let's establish a savings. Let's understand your finances now. Let's talk about credit and have the kids run the program. Of course, they have, facilitators from the faculty watching over it. But just being in position to do something innovative that speaks to the youth, where you're talking about increasing their knowledge when it comes to finances at age 14, 15, and 16, that's a big deal for me. It was so big that it ended up making the news. CNN came and did a story. They came out to the ribbon cutting. The mayor came out, Mayor of Durham, some of the city officials. I mean, it was just a great time. And to have my name mentioned in association with that was big. So, you're probably having some people looking at him with like, wow, how did he do it? I don't know if it's necessarily a Black thing, but they're probably like, well, how did he do it? And so God positioned me and gave me the heart to see it all the way through. I didn't think it could happen, but it did. And so I take pride in knowing that I had a hand and helped shape, the thinking behind finances when you're talking about the youth.
Oh, that's wonderful. And we're talking about Hillside High School in Durham, North Carolina, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, for our viewers, so that they know where we're talking about. That's wonderful, and that is huge on so many levels. For kids to learn. I'm finance at my core, and so for them to learn responsibilities and credit and understanding how things work, even at that simple level, to start that there makes a big difference. It impacts their lives in a bigger way as they get older. So one of the things that I have for you is a question on, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this question for you. I want to go back really quickly to something you said. It jumped out to me then, but we had a conversation going on, and I want to go back.
Okay.
You talked about Black men particularly. There's just some things that they don't talk about, some things that they don't say. It happens. If you were there, you know about it. If you weren't there, you don't know about it, but they continue to just push and move forward. Why is that? Because I'm finding that there's a lot of things that you guys as Black men, a lot has happened in your life to you, and no one would ever know.
Well, for one, and I'm not speaking for all Black men, but many of us, we just have a hard time articulating our emotions, and how we feel about certain things. Like I said, if you're anybody like me growing up in the inner city, people don't want to hear that. They don't want to see you vulnerable, suck it up, man up, So anytime you hear man up, you suck it up, well, that's an opportunity that's lost to express who you are, and so most men would take that as a weakness if you come out being vulnerable and sharing your darkest and inner secrets, you know. And so we're more hardwired to say, hey, look, man, do what you gotta do, man. Feel what you feel, but move on. Living moment to moment. Even when we're depressed, we drank our sorrows away. You know what I'm saying? We would verbally abuse others because we're hurting inside, but we're not really saying exactly what we want to say. It's coming out in different ways. We're crying for help. But even we don't know why we're doing what we're doing, because there's a hole inside of us that we just never were able to process. We never understood, what is it? What's ailing us? And we're getting attacked on so many levels, not just, from people outside, but even within. Even if you look at your environment that you grew up in, 9 times out of 10 is dysfunctional. You know what I'm saying? So if you're coming from an environment that's dysfunctional, then of course you're going to be dysfunctional by association. And so when you're dysfunctional, you just really don't know how to ask for help. So you really don't know how to articulate it, express it. It's just always been something that escapes us when we want to, kind of share our feelings. Because I've had girlfriends be like, why are you so, what's the word I used to say? You keep things close to the chest a lot. You're very reserved. Why are you so reserved? Why don't you just share what's on your mind? Tell me how you feel about certain things. And it's not that I didn't want to, it's just that I didn't know how to. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't modeled before me. Even the great men in my life that I may consider mentors, they always present themselves from a source of strength and not from a source of weakness. So vulnerability with Black men wasn't often displayed around me coming up. All I saw was the symptoms of it, the byproducts of it. People getting hooked on drugs, drinking, being addicted to sex, all the addictions. It's just really a byproduct of something that's going on inside that maybe that person never had a chance on how to express.
Yeah. So if you're keeping silent, but you have some angers and some things building inside, just from societal pressures, from your own pressures, from family pressures, from wherever they may be coming from, what are outlets that you use? And I'm not speaking for all Black men, but for you, what are some of the outlets that you use now, as you've grown and you've learned, that, okay, this is not always good to keep everything inside. There's some things that I do need to express, and it doesn't mean that I'm less manly if I express those things. What are some ways that you deal with those things to get them out?
Working out. Exercise, and I sympathize with what Ryan said yesterday when he said his wife to me and said, "Man, you need more friends," And I texted him. I said, "Well, I'm trying to be your friend, but we're just so busy.
Yeah.
We can't slow down enough." And it's Ryan Wade I'm talking about. He was on the show yesterday. Great man, love him to death. But a lot of us, we're lonely. We're very lonely. Outwardly, when we representing our companies or when we representing our jobs per se, we do a great job in that. But many of us, and I'm speaking for me too, we don't have like close friends that we can confide in. And to say, hey, let's get up and let's just be boys, man. Let's hang, let's talk. How you doing? So because oftentimes I'm a lone ranger, I spend a lot of times by myself when I'm not working or doing events with other people. A lot of times I'm left alone with my thoughts trying to sort things out. And that's really unhealthy. So the only thing that I have been resorted to doing is working out, journalizing. I do journalize my thoughts a lot. I do self-inventories, just checking in with myself and see what's going on. And that's just me being transparent, you know. So the only thing I can think of is working out and journalizing my thoughts, take it up with prayer and say, hey, God, you know, if you can help me figure this out, you know. But yeah.
Wow. Did you grow up in the church?
Well, I didn't grow up in a church as far as from boyhood until teenage years. I would say from 24 to about 37, I was in church pretty regularly. I've led a
What
couple of
changed and got you into church? I'm sorry.
No, you fine. Tiffany, actually.
Your wife.
My wife, Tiffany Staten, she came across this church called the Soul Factory in Maryland. And when I went to the church, I didn't like the pastor. He was nothing I've ever heard or seen before. I mean, he was an alpha male for real. And let you know how simple-minded I was, because, you know, I'm used to happy Baptists. I'm used to people screaming and throwing holy water up in the air, people running all over the place, you know, happy Baptist, you know. So I've never seen a church, a leader like this. And Tiffany said, Terence, I think you really need to come out to this church. I mean, I think you need to just take some time, come out with me, you're gonna get something. So I'm sitting in this church and I'm listening to this man, you know, Deron Cloud. And I ain't like him. I said, nah, I don't think I can, nah. So then they did a play about a month later. And at this time they changed locations. So I didn't put two and two together. And the play was called Believers You Paid for the Show. And there's something about that play that just resonated with me. It wasn't a play like I've ever seen before. It hit me up so bad that I told myself I'm about to bust hell wide open if I don't get myself together. And he came out at the end of the play because he produced the plays and everything. And I'm like, wow, is this guy? And he got to talking and my spirit was open. And I started coming back. And every time I came back, I was getting edified. You know, I was feeling a sense of self. You know, I felt God really in my life. I've connected with him really for the first time, you know. And there were so many lessons I learned at this church about just getting to know me, processing myself, processing other people. I became a man. I had to pretty much fast from women. It was just God and the men in church. And for me, that was hard because, you know, I was a lover man. I love women. And so you telling me I gotta, you know, sustain from that. I can't have no relationships with any women, no Tiffany, no nothing. Yeah. It was hard. But it was the greatest time of my life. It was just me and God. And from that time, I just felt God is building me up.
Yeah.
Coming into a man, becoming to a leader. And from that point on, 13 years later, I'm still there.
So I know that viewers are wanting to ask this question. Were you and Tiffany were not married when that encounter happened, or were you married?
No, we were not married.
Yeah, I wanted to just clarify it. Right. As you talk about sustaining from women, you later married her, right?
we were dating, and of course she didn't like it.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, well, you know, Tiffany, you brought me to this church, so you know, I'm blaming this on you. Okay, so well, hey, she didn't like it, but you know what? She respected it, and I think about 7 months. Yeah, just me and God.
Wow.
And she grew from it too. You know, I think it allowed her to be in her own space with God. She's developed some relationships with other women in the church. They grew her up as well. And I always knew that she was going to be the one, but I knew I couldn't marry her being immature. I had to grow, you know, I had to develop. And so I allowed the maturation process to take place. And 7 or 8 months later, we call ourselves cell groups. You assigned to a group of men, she was assigned to a group of women. And they said, Terence, you ready? I think you're ready. And so when I got the green light, I went and proposed to Tiffany. And 19 years later, we are still together, 19 years in a row. That's very important. Because
Yes.
you have some couples that don't make it. They get back together and they kind of don't make it. But we've been together for 19 straight years.
Oh, that's wonderful. So now let me ask you this as we're kind of getting to the end. I've got just a few more questions for you, and this has been such a wonderful conversation, and thank you so much for being here. You talked about, number one, I want to make sure we don't miss this because I overtalked you, that you led some groups and did some things from a church standpoint. You want to talk about that just a little bit?
Well, I alluded to earlier, we have what you call cell groups. And within that cell group structure, you have an X, who's the overseer. And then you have the mentee, who is XA. And then you're pretty much meeting up with these groups, I think twice a month, where you get together, you go over scripture, lesson plans, you share, you pray together. It's a brotherhood. What's in the group stays in the group, is not to be shared with anybody outside the group. And I met a level of maturity where it was said that Terence needed to have his own group. And they gave me my group. And I didn't know if I can do it because, again, the critical nature of me, I could tear myself apart better than anybody else can. I don't know if I could do this. I mean, I don't think that's for me. But I heard in my spirit, do it anyway. And because I went ahead and did it, I've had some great lessons, how to be a leader. As I mentioned earlier, the relatability thing, that was already in me, but now it's a little bit different because I now have discernment and I understand how to disciple. I understand how to speak to certain spirits. I understand how to discern certain spirits. And one thing it also taught me is how to confront, because that's the other dysfunction that many of us have, is that we don't know how to confront. You know what I'm saying? Many of us, we confront like women in a sense, where, and that's no offense to the women, but we get so caught up in our emotions and how we feel, and we allow our emotions to dictate our actions. So I had to learn to say, well, no, let me make sure what I'm feeling is accurate. So let me go and ask some questions and then walk away and say, okay, well, was that a $5 issue or a $500 issue? You making something $5 into 500, come on, man. You know what I'm saying? But those are the type of things that I've learned along the way that's attributed to me being the person I am today. And I really look back, and those are some great times for myself. So, yeah.
So I hear you saying a few things that you've said throughout this time that we've talked: being relatable, having some type of discernment, really evaluating your feelings and understanding where they're coming from and the validity to them at that moment. Is it truth to this, or am I just making this up, or I'm making this bigger than what it may be, or am I just misunderstanding someone? Being able to understand where someone else is coming from and what their needs are and what their perspective is. And these are all things that I've heard you say as we talk today. I'm imagining that as you talk about these just in your life, when we look at society as a whole and where we are today, that these are some things that as a society we could kind of use as tools to get to some agreement and to be able to move forward better than where we are today. Would you agree or disagree, or have something else to say to that?
Oh, I completely agree. The reason why I agree is because Black people in particular, no one have our experiences. Okay, no one, even the Jewish, they've experienced some on one level, but not for many years, after decades, centuries. I mean, we have really experienced a lot as a people, and we have a lot of hurt. You know what I'm saying? We have a lot of hurt, and many of us don't quite understand how to process that hurt. So it comes out in so many different ways, you know, and it gets to a point where we have to just be healed. You know, there's just some things that we need to be healed on. Um, when I look at today's world, you know, with the murders from the cops, you know, the prejudice, the racism and different things like that, it's nothing new. You know, it's been going on for centuries, and we taking it. It's getting to the point now where if a cop shows up, you cringe a little bit because you're thinking, okay, well, if I get pulled over, I might not make it. Well, that's how real it is. It's like every day we always going up against something that ends up in strife. You know what I'm saying? And so how do we, one, navigate through that? You know, how do we get healing from that? We are powerful, exceptional people. We're brilliant, we're smart, we're loving, we're patriots, we're leaders, we're fathers, we're mothers, we're somebody's son and daughter. I mean, we're everything to everybody. But at the same time, we still feel low and dejected and demoralized, you know? So I guess what I'm trying to say is that the next phase or evolution for us as Black people is we gotta be healed. You know, we gotta unmask some things, and we're gonna have to do it together. And it takes a level of being transparent. It takes a level of us being vulnerable about judgment and being able to really help us talk this thing through, you know, together. And I think if we can do that, you're going to see a magnificent change take place in the way that we relate to each other, how we love one another. It'd be a different dynamic in how we relate to one another. But it's just so many things, so many layers we got to peel back, and we got to get healing for. And so that's the way I see it.
What was the importance of you coming and talking with me today?
Well, what I wanted to do was just stay true to your form, is that there's so many layers to Black men. You know, we are a diverse people. You can't lump us up in one box. We all don't look alike. We all don't sound alike. We all come from different backgrounds. Might be similar, but they differ in some ways, right? Some of us is mean as hell. We got some bad apples. We do, but doesn't everybody else, right? So how is it with us? We always got to be demonized as a whole, as a race of people. Like I said before, we are exceptional people. We are brilliant people. We are smart people. And we have built this country. You know what I'm saying? We have. You can't take that away from us. And so if I say anything, or if you take anything out of what I'm trying to say is that, and I think you said this earlier, don't put us in the box. You know what I'm saying? You can't put us in the box. We are exceptional people. I love being Black. I'm Black first every day. I would never run away from being Black. I don't care how many times people try to beat it out of me or demoralize me or berate me. I don't care. I love being Black. Okay, this is who God birthed me to be, is Black. But I want Black people to, and I see it, I do, but let's love each other better. Because if we can love each other more, just imagine what can come out of that love. You know, so I'm excited for where we're going. I'm excited that I hate how things have developed to push us to this point. But at the same time, I'm excited that I'm hearing more and more Black people coming together and starting to build an appetite for growth and group economics. I think that's going to be the big thing for us, is that we're going to have to understand group economics, and we're going to have to burden each other's pain, and we're going to have to build each other up again. And I'm looking forward to doing the work. So, yeah.
The Village.
It's the village. Got to get back to that
Getting
tribal
back to the
village
village.
mindset. Yep.
So, okay, I have a really quick fire. You ready for it? Rapid
And bring
questions.
it, bring it, bring it.
You ready? Okay,
I'm ready.
here we go. Favorite movie?
Ah, so many. Let's see. Let's break that down a little bit. When you say
Okay,
favorite movie,
top three.
top three movies. Malcolm X with
Okay,
Denzel Washington. Rocky Four when he fought the Russian. I don't know why I like that movie, but I do. If I had to say my third one, favorite best third movie, that's a good question, man. I can't think of one, to be honest with
okay. So let's look at those two. Why Malcolm X? Why Rocky Four?
you. I know my third one. Let's go back.
Okay.
It's a classic. Uptown Saturday Night. If you remember that movie. Yeah. Okay, so going back to your new question. Um, Malcolm X because I'm just fascinated with Black power, Black leadership, Black formation. I love it because oftentimes you don't see us in that capacity. You know, I wasn't born when the Black Panther movement started, so I never really saw it in real time, and still on some levels didn't see it until recently because they had the Black militias, marching down Atlanta, Georgia. When I saw that, I was like, wow, I love it. And so just seeing Malcolm X becoming Malcolm X and the way his story was being told and how he spoke truth into power and how it resonated with the community, it just always resonated with me. And so I just loved it. Rocky Four was about the underdog. If anybody see Rocky Four, boy, Rocky takes some beatings, but he just kept getting back up. And I'm talking about he taking hits that no man should be able to get up from. Undersized, small guy, muscular, but small guy fighting the Russian who's at least 6'5", over 300 pounds, nothing but muscle, but he kept getting up. And so how I relate to that movie is being the underdog, being Black, going into a room already being measured, already being limited. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it was, okay, I'm gonna prove y'all I can do this. I'm gonna be great no matter what. No matter what you throw at me, I'm gonna be great. Give me a punch, I'll take it. But when I land one back, you're gonna feel it. So I always kind of like the underdog story. Uptown Saturday Night, I just love it. It's just a funny movie, Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier. It was just a funny movie, man. It was about that pimp life. It kind of had some other storylines twisted into it, but if I really need to laugh and just enjoy being in the moment, watching the movie, that was always my go-to. I just love that movie. It was well put together. So yeah, that would be my top three favorite movies.
Okay. Favorite food?
Oh, seafood all day. I mean, I'm from Maryland, DC area. That's what we do. Crab legs, crab cake, shrimp. Yeah, bring it to me. Now, I won't do, oysters and mussels and all that stuff. And caviar, I ain't with all that. But,
Why not?
well, it's something about the texture when you talk about mussels and stuff. Nah, I just don't like it, you know.
Got you.
Uh, but yeah, crab legs, shrimp, crabs, crab cake, salmon, all that good stuff. Yeah, I love that all day long. But yeah, but seafood.
Okay. Seafood. What about your favorite song?
I'm more of a neo soul person. Um, so I don't know if I necessarily have a favorite song, um, because I just love neo soul, jazz, soulful type music. I'm more of an instrumental person. I love hearing instruments. But now, if there's a song that always seems to rise me up when I'm low, is Marvin Sapp's song. It's old too. Uh, What is it? Mm, I can't think of the name, but pretty much the song is about getting up. This is no time to quit.
Mm.
Get up. And reason why it always inspires me because sometimes I do feel like quit. That's just real talk. I feel like quitting sometimes. I'm not suicidal, but sometimes I feel like quitting. Like, what is all this for? What am I doing?
Yeah.
So when I hear songs like that, it's like God is singing to me, say, hey, brother, get on up. You better than this. Let's go.
Mhm.
And I just love it. And I'm sorry I can't remember the name, but that's pretty much what the song was about. When you fall, just keep getting right on back up.
Yeah. As you're being transparent and talk about quitting, it takes me back to Rocky and those punches happening. And sometimes life can bring so many punches at one time that it's like, okay, I'm just done. And to have something that just says, nope, keep going, go back in the ring, almost like his coach on the side, get up, go back in the ring. And that's what I hear you saying that's what that song does for you, the one by Marvin Sapp.
Yeah, because as I mentioned before, Black people, boy, we've gone through a lot. And every time we come up for air, it's like something is just punching us back down. But we keep getting back up. And that's why, I admire the protesters. You know what I'm saying? Because with all these murders, with everything else that's going on with job loss, with Corona, everything that we're facing in today's climate, we keep getting back up and we keep fighting, and I think a new day is coming, so I encourage them to keep fighting. The only thing to it is we just got to make sure that we're fighting some other wars simultaneously, because it's one thing to protest, holler, hoop, and scream, but we really got to figure out economically how we're going to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps and make sure that we're taking care of our own people. And that's what I advocate for. Everything I'm doing right now is to help people. What I get is going to come regardless. I'm not worrying about me. But if I can create more jobs, if I can help people start businesses that are going to create more jobs and really pursue a real chance of having a strong Black economic system within America, that's my purpose. It's what I get out of bed for. And so I love the fact that we're fighting. I love the fact that we're rethinking, we're recalibrating, we're refocusing on us, so that's where it is. So I'm excited.
I have two more questions for you.
Okay.
So the next one is favorite hobby.
My favorite hobby is interesting because I used to like playing basketball a lot. And that's, this is so easy to say for Black men because we all like playing basketball, right? But basketball to me was different. Basketball was bringing people together, laughing, having a good time, being competitive, being in your own universe with like-minded people. It's like the barbershop, really. When you go in the barbershop for men, that was our safe haven.
Yeah.
But basketball was that for me. You know what I'm saying? That's my safe haven. That's where I get to meet new people. Friends, we get together, we talk about life as we're playing basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Love basketball. But I need to find me a new hobby as I get older, them knees, man. My wife, she best will be talking about, man, is your knees making that much noise getting out the bed? So, I'm going to find something different. So I've been looking at golf. I've been looking at bicycling. I think bicycling is definitely something I want to get into. I think that's going to be my new hobby, if not golf.
Something low impact.
Yeah.
Favorite place you like to visit or just go vacation?
Well, it used to be the DRC before people were going over there drinking and dying. It was crazy what was going on in DRC, but love it. You could say the same about some other islands I've traveled to. I don't know if I have a favorite island per se, but I did like the DRC. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, I would say that.
You know, I thought about this, and this is just real talk. It's not on on this subject, but just real talk as you talk about DRC. I thought
Hmm.
about, and I was like, did they have Corona before we even knew about it? Because a lot of this, I mean, a lot of the things, you know what I'm saying? They kind of add up. I don't know. That's just my theory. That's not news. That's not what was proven. It's just my theory of things. Of I wonder if there was a strand or something with Corona happening, because the people would go to that same hotel room and experience the same thing, you
Yeah,
know, as if, and you think about Corona, how long it lives on surfaces, things of that nature, depending of the cleanliness of some of the hotels. We can always debate that no matter what price the hotel is. You know, we can
hmm,
I've been in very expensive hotels. I don't go in low end hotels as much, but growing up in college and things of that nature, you know, you never know. You go and you hope that you get a good room at the end of the day. I've taken
so,
blinging pictures and been back down at the desk. Like, look, what is this?
so are you a conspiracy theorist?
I'm not, but you know, I may have a little bit of that. I may just have a little bit of that in me. That's for another day, though. I may have a little bit. I mean, it's just, you know, if it looks like a cat and it meows like a cat, then it might be a cat. Just possibilities. It might be.
Well, you know,
Did
I go back to I think he's one of your favorite people actually, Bill Gates.
okay.
If you remember eugenics, he was talking about ways to depopulate the earth, you know, and normally what they do is they want test subjects, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
whenever they
Yeah.
have test subjects, they always go into one of the more, impoverished, areas, you know, and so to find out something is going to work, you got to test it.
You
So
got to test it.
it's not far-fetched to believe that that was the early stages of Corona. It was an epidemic, not a pandemic, right?
Right.
Because it was kind of like in a centralized area. It wasn't like an
Yeah.
outbreak. I mean, certain people brought it into different areas because they didn't know it,
Sure.
but it's not a pandemic. But what they did learn is that it worked. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And so now Bill Gates is trying to get Africa to take these vaccinations. And
Mm.
everything is about money. You know, if I can create a
Mhm.
problem
Mhm.
and then also give you a solution, then that way I can make money. I can profit off this
Yeah.
pandemic. So I'm
Yeah.
open-minded. Like I say, these devils that we face every day is wicked on so many levels.
Yeah.
They don't care about you. They don't care about your family. They don't care how much money you have, how much integrity you have. They want you out of here. So
Mhm.
nothing is far-fetched
Mhm. Mhm.
as far as I'm concerned.
No. No, there's nothing far fetched, and you bring up a valid point that society has for a long time tested things on those that are less fortunate. I look at the Tuskegee experiments. I look at the experiments that happened with women right here in North Carolina, where they were pretty much, giving them hysterectomies without their consent in a lot of ways, or making them sterile in a lot of ways. You can go back even further, as we go into history. And I think that brings a valid point to a part of, not the whole reason, but a part of the voices of a Black man, because it's a place where a lot of things that when we talk about a Black man, there's systemic and systematic things that have been in place for years and hundreds of years that we don't realize that are playing out today, in mental, right, of our culture, mental of our Black men, mental of how we look at our Black men, mental of how Black men act and things that happen, and things that are done because of those systematic things that have happened along the way, policies, um, just laws, just all kinds of things. And I think that that's one thing why I say, no, all Black men are not in the same box. Number one,
Mhm.
nobody's in the same box because we're all human, which means that we
Right.
have more commonalities than we have differences. We just happen to have different hues to us. And then looking at America together, all just America, it's a melting pot. And it's funny to me when people are upset with one race or another, when that's what America was built to be. The melting pot, a place for everyone to come to have freedom and to live good quality lives. But yet it doesn't seem it's okay for you to live a good quality life, but not me, because my skin is a different shade, or something that I have no control over. You have no control over. Our brown sisters and brothers, our yellow sisters and brothers. No one has the control over what their skin color is. No one has control over who they're born to, what family you're born into, or how you're raised. Right up to a certain point, you got to get to a certain age before you then can take over your life and take control of your life. But at the end of the day, nobody's waking up to say, I think I'm going to be black today, and I'm going to be a female, and I'm going to have my hair is going to be this texture, and my lips are going to be this way, or whatever. No, you just are who you are. And I think that we're short-sighted when we only see the outside of it. And like you talked about, and I think it goes back to what you talked about, and I didn't mean to carry on, but here we go. It goes back to what you talked about when you said, is it a $5 issue or a $500 issue? And it's not about the money. I understand what you're saying. You're saying, is this a molehill that I'm making into a mountain? Is this, if I'm just looking on the outside and I don't know the person, you may be missing out on a really great relationship, a really good partnership, a really good business opportunity, a really good, great mind that could take you somewhere, enrich your life in any kind of way. And that's really what the Voices of Black Men is about, is wait a minute, let's listen, let's hear the stories of Black men, because everybody else is telling their narrative. Everybody has their point of view. Let's listen to the Black men and really figure out how they feel, where they sit in all of this, just as a man, period, on this earth.
Well, Sherelle, I'm so excited for you, and I'm so thankful that you invited me on this platform. Because, of course, in today's climate, people need to see Black men for who we are. These false narratives and these poor depictions of us got to stop. So, as a sister, as a strong sister, I am so excited and I'm so appreciative that you answered the call and said, well, you know what? I'm going to create a platform. I'm going to interview the brothers and get their perspectives on who they are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's hear our strong brothers that's out here in the community doing the very best we can with what we have. You know what I'm saying? That oftentimes get overlooked. And so thank you for this platform. Hopefully, many people will be blessed by what you are doing. You're going to be blessed because you answered the call. I see God doing so many things through you and your husband. And this is only the beginning. The only thing I have to say is just thank you for allowing me to be on the journey with you.
Oh, thank you for being here, my brother. Thank you definitely for being Okay, you know what the truth is? The truth is we're live. And what happens when you're live? Internet works when it want to work, and when it doesn't want to work, hey, it just cuts out. So that's what happened. So thank you
Always
for still
say,
being here. Thank you for still tuning in. I'm so sorry about that, but that's technology, love it and hate it. You know, Terrence, we're getting ready to get out of here, but I wanted to give you a chance to say what was on your heart, what was on your mind. Thank you so much. Let me just say, I don't know if you heard me, but thank you so much for being here, for sharing your heart, for what you said to me and what you just sowed into my life. I really, really appreciate that for me and my husband. And you're absolutely right. This was a call of God. This is not something I had planned to do, but can't do anything less than what it is. So I want to leave the lasting words with you as we close out. Anything on your heart and mind, I'm turning it over to you.
well, I think I've said a lot today, but if I had to add anything to it, enjoy being who you are. Enjoy being Black. Being Black is a marvelous thing. As I said before, and I'm gonna keep saying it, we are exceptional people. There's power in our community. And just make sure that you always have the mindset to fight, not just for your color, but also fight for what you believe in. We need leaders. You know, my burden every day is to improve my leadership. You know, what role can I play in the community? We all are needed one way or the other. So don't feel like that you can't contribute to this new movement that's taking place. Don't get caught up in your education level. May not have a degree, you may not have a master's, you were once incarcerated, you know, whatever your story is, you're somebody and you need it. And so I just want you all to understand that it's great being Black. And I'm gonna leave it at that.
It's great being Black. We've heard Terence Staten. We've heard his story through his lens. I've enjoyed our time together, even with our crazy internet mix up. I have really enjoyed our conversation. One of the things I was saying, I think while I was frozen, was I don't think this conversation is over. We're gonna have to have a part two or something sometime, because this was really great and I really enjoyed. Thank you, viewers, for being here today. Thank you for watching Terrence Staten as he told his story through his lens. This has been the Voices of a Black Man. Now you've seen and you've heard Terrence's story. The question now is, what do you do with that? The action is up to you. We all have biases. Was there anything that he said today that hit you in a different way or gave you a new perspective that maybe you've never seen or thought about before? Then what do you do next? You have to decide that. I'm CK James, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow as we deal with a roundtable discussion and bring several of the men back from this week back to have a deeper dive. All right. We'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow, same time, 12 p.m. Eastern, same channel. Take care. Bye.
Yeah.